How's it going, Cade? Thanks for hopping on the podcast. This is episode 2 of the podcast, which I think this one's going to be a special one for me. I think it's going to allow people to really get to know me. And I know, so I can introduce you to everybody. We've known each other for almost a decade now. We're family at this point, brothers at this point. We played hockey together. And, for the viewers and, everyone in the community that watches these videos and is trying to get to know me, people around me said, do something more intimate, like explain who you are, where you've come from, and get to know me more on a personal level, not a business level. And I couldn't think of anyone better to do this podcast with. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. And,
for sure. But yeah, so I had a couple questions for you off the hop here, but knowing you're not necessarily a big social media guy personally before this or anything. What were you hoping to get out of this? Like, you're starting to move into the social media space. I know you love the business side, you love the knocking doors and the sales side, but now you're moving into social media. Like, what are you wanting to get out of this? Like, what's your goal here?
Yeah, everyone that's known me for as long as you or knew me, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I was never a guy that you would have thought to be a content creator, to be on social media, just to be that, person. And I think a couple things happened in my life to kind of pivot to focus on it.
Was it the YouTube at a young age?
Yeah, no, definitely. There's some old videos on YouTube, but
those are good.
No, really, I was recently at SolarCon, and I was having an IV, and I was talking to Brad Lee, and he spoke there. He was, the main speaker at the event, and I heard him speak, prior at a different convention. And I go to these conventions, and I'm always trying to learn something from them, network, and I take a lot of my team members with me because it helps them grow and learn. The one thing that he told me was I wasn't exactly like you. He had larger businesses at the time, but he said, he started a social media and everything just started to blossom for him. And it was tough at first, he had some funny jokes in regards to it, but it definitely boosted a lot of things for him. Those are monetary, those are just, personal recognition, brand awareness.
For sure.
All of those things that naturally happen when you do business for long enough.
Yeah.
It's just like adding gas to a fire when you combine that, because it's such a big thing nowadays. Everyone's on TikTok, everyone's on Instagram, and you have to, if you're going to be someone in the business world and you want to recruit people, you have to have that. So I think, just recently, with Brad Lee, other than that, I just see other people in the industry doing it. And I think my company's that size, everybody knows who that is. And I think it was something that I was I want to create some more brand awareness. I think it'll be more powerful for recruiting, and that'll help my personal company and my other companies really get going.
For sure. So that makes sense. Are you finding that you're getting more recognition already? I know you've only posted a little bit. Last summer we did a bit of content just to test the waters in a way, talking about it, but it was a bit different than now. Are you feeling like you're already getting some talking, you're talking to a couple different people to come onto the podcast, things like that? Where is it going from there?
Yeah, honestly, the feedback has been phenomenal. We're not raking in thousands of views, but the people that are watching them are reaching out. If it's short clips, if it's the people that have watched the first episode of the podcast, people are saying they enjoy the content and it's beneficial for them. And it's cool to have an in-depth look and a personal look at someone's life and business that's, a young entrepreneur. So really it's hit or miss for me in regards to, is it working? I think yes. It's not making any money. It's taking a lot of time away from my businesses. But I think if I continue to do this, hopefully I can make a difference and help somebody. Yeah. And I think it'll come along the way and start to benefit me in some ways.
Cool. Are you planning anything interesting in the future with it too, or just is it sticking to podcast short form stuff, or is it transitioning from? Obviously it's new, but do you have a larger goal within that complex of what's going on?
Yeah, and I mean, like we've talked about this, and I think you've added so much value in terms of like what people will like to watch, like what's exciting for people to watch, and what's not out there. Like you have the Grant Cardones, you have the Bradleys, you have all these business gurus, the Gary V's, and they're going around and they're perfect on everything. They don't make mistakes. They're just successful. And I kind of want to change that narrative into a more in-depth look. Like for me, something that I think will really differentiate my channel and my content creation is like, we're going to build a community, and that community is going to be all sorts of sales, but predominantly home improvement sales at the kitchen table in someone's home. So we want to do, a segment, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours a week where people in our community can message in or chat in a video of their pitch, a video of their meeting, a voice recording, and we go through and we break it down with them. And other people can learn and listen from that if they don't have recordings of their own or if they're just starting out. And, I've done hundreds of in-home meetings myself. I've trained lots of reps across the industry. I've trained other sub-dealer reps in roofing and alarms and all sorts of businesses. So with my knowledge, I'll be able to break them down and hopefully give some insight that helps people just make more money and enjoy the job more and be successful at it. Aside from that, I want to get into, doing a little bit of a short film, like documentary, like a series, like a mini series on YouTube. The intentions of that are to kind of show people that, and we'll kind of get into where I started in life later, but show people that, no matter where you are at in life, like there's ways to be successful. Yeah. And being successful is one thing, and a lot of people think that, they were lucky, which some of them were, most of them were, but it requires a certain mindset and a certain few skills that are very easily learned.
Can I jump in there though?
Yeah.
But like from seeing from the outside, at least a lot of like we've had a couple other friends that are pretty successful in the same sort of industries, not necessarily solar, but just business in general. You guys are lucky, but at the same time, like the amount of work ethic that I've seen behind the scenes, like from growing up playing sports and stuff like that, all of our friends are within hockey or within sports community. Like that transition, a lot of them work really hard moving into something else. Like I get the luck portion goes into everything. Right. It goes into literally everything in life, but how much of it is the work ethic plus the luck, or within that concept both together? Like where would you say it's not just luck? I've seen your work ethic. Like,
no,
you know what I mean?
It's a good point, and I think there's like certain tiers to it.
First, more work, the more lucky you get.
Exactly. Yeah. And I could talk on this for hours, but something that I've used for my teams, we've done in trainings, is a very simple phrase. So even at Horizon, we have a team name that luck equals work. So the harder you work, the luckier you get. And that mentality is super true. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think very few people outwork me. And from the outside looking in, like, a lot of people think that, I'm working on so many different things at once, and it might not look like, I'm just sitting there all day welding something, but it's a different type of work. Yeah. And it's constantly thinking about your business. It's constantly strategizing about your business and being available for those people to help them. And then anticipating in the future, what are things that are going to come up in the future that I need to build? So to answer your question, like, yes, I agree. And I think a lot of people say luck, and I say luck. And maybe that's a little bit of a naive statement, because you're right. I think work does equal success. And going back to it, like, that's what I want the short series to be about. Yeah. I want it to be, and we'll release a date that works for us and my schedule and my companies. But I'm going to do a series that essentially is me starting with, an old pickup truck or an old vehicle, and less than $50 in my pocket. And I'm going to show how I can work from that in an industry I've never been in before, and work my way up to $1,000 a day. And we're going to see how long it takes me to scale. Yeah. And you're going to be the person running it and directing it. So
I'm excited about this.
No cheating, I guess, right? You're going to be pretty hard on me.
Yeah. But for people that don't know you on like as personally and stuff, or even people in your company, like I've seen like going to like your opinion of work basically is it's 24/7. Like I've been with you, my wife gets mad at me. She's like, what are you doing getting home at 3:30 in the morning? I'm like, we've been working the whole time. Like, and it isn't necessarily that I'm even working or you're working. We're having fun. Like, yes, we talk about work ethic and stuff, and like you work ridiculously hard, but like, how do you find that balance where it's actually like a ton of fun what we're doing or what you're doing every day? Like, I enjoy going and like working with you, like learning from you, stuff like that. Like, I'm using it as almost a college experience to figure out exactly how to do stuff. But the amount of joy that you have in your day-to-day business and stuff like that is pretty impressive. Like, how do you do that, and like what's your thought process on that side of things?
Yeah, there's a lot of joy. I'm very grateful for the company that I have, and there's bad times too. But that being said, like, I think for me, I don't look at what I do to make money, what I do to continue expanding what I have as work. Like, I think of it as like a fun challenge, and I think that mentality is really important for entrepreneurs because, everyone could be an entrepreneur, but the difference between someone that will succeed as an entrepreneur and someone that'll never try or try and fail is the people that can't stomach the stress. They can't handle, negativity, everyone around them thinking, oh, this is silly, this is funny, you're never going to achieve that. The people that can't handle that internally are the ones that are going to fail. And they might have the best idea ever, and they might be totally capable of doing that to a huge scale. But if they can't swallow the stress and the negativity and the stuff that's going to happen along the way as an entrepreneur, then they're not going to be successful. So I try to incorporate joy, and I'm having the time of my life. We're in our 20s, we're growing companies, we're doing millions of dollars a year, and how many people would love to be in our position, and how blessed are we? So I just try to enjoy everything. I think everything could change tomorrow. I could lose my companies, and I'd be fine because I could start over, and I know I can stomach the stress and the pain and know what it takes to go through certain things to eventually end up in a successful place.
For sure. One more thing on that. Is there a specific point where you felt like it transitioned from, like, I know the beginning of your story where you were working at as a waiter for a bit there, stuff like that. You're like no money to your name. You're telling me a story about your boots where you went into debt because of it. But was there a transition point where you went, okay, I'm doing this for money, but now I'm doing it because I like getting sales. I like doing that, because now you don't need to knock doors, but you love going and knocking doors. You love finding that sales purpose. Like, is there a transition period there where you were like, this was a light bulb moment where it went from this is work for money to this is fun, me having to figure out how to sell someone?
Yeah, no, and I think we should even go into more depth about the boot story in a second, but really what happened was, I did a number of jobs. I finished playing hockey. I played high-level hockey with you growing up, and, you learn a lot of work ethic in it. And then I came out of hockey, and then I was with non-athletes that were, professional, going to the NHL, and I was with normal people. And the work ethic and the difference between different types of people, those athletes and everyday people that I was experiencing at ASU and working at the restaurant, are so different. Like the mindset, the mentality is so different. So I think I went into that life for a little bit, and I was going to ASU and I was working at the restaurant, and I just realized that it wasn't for me. I saw you and what you were doing in hockey, and I just felt like everything that I was doing was nominal and it wasn't important. And I just continued to enjoy my life until an opportunity presented itself. I always was entrepreneurial growing up, and always thought of business ideas. This would be cool to do, that'd be cool to do. Looking around a restaurant, wondering how much money they make, counting the seats in a movie theater, and how many movies an hour there are. That being said, like, I always had that mindset, but really the turning point for me was freedom. It all comes down to freedom. Like, I don't want anybody to control me and tell me, how much I'm worth a year. I want to have the freedom to be able to make as much money as I want, live the life that I want, and do whatever I want, because, that's my definition of wealth. Time is short. You only have so much of it. It's the most important resource. And how do you get more time? Well, you can't buy it, but you can use your time more wisely if you make money in ways that you kind of have the freedom to work from anywhere, or you make a lot of it fast, and it allows you to kind of monetize your schedule and make your schedule more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the turning point, is when I realized that was achievable for me, and I was actually someone that was capable of doing that.
For sure. So another question off of that was, where do you find the purpose portion? You're talking about with the hockey, you have a purpose. Your goal is obviously to play in the NHL or win the Stanley Cup, stuff like that. How did you find purpose outside of it? And then on top of that too, you transitioned into entrepreneurship. Were there hard times stepping into that? Like, where was the darkest point of that transition? Because that's where you found purpose, right? Was within that, from at least when we've talked in the past, is your purpose was once it became into entrepreneurial side of things. But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows to start with.
Right. Yeah. No, I think probably the biggest wake-up call, there was a lot of them, right? Every day there's something when you're starting out for the first couple of years that, seems like it could be the end. Yeah. Or am I capable of doing this, or am I going to get out of this situation? But, first things first, I started knocking doors by myself. I wasn't that good at it. I didn't get a deal in 2 weeks. And I would continue to knock doors and try to figure it out. And, back then I didn't have any fancy proposal software. I would get their utility bill. I'd, take a picture of it. I'd go back to the house. I'd send it into the company. They'd build me a proposal. I'd be like, oh no, move the panels here, move them there. Didn't know how much to sell it for. And I got one. But before that, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm doing this. I have no money. I could go work a job and be guaranteed a check, in a restaurant at the end of the night. I could get some tip money, or a normal job, every 2 weeks. And I think that was a little bit of a stress. Like, everyone thinks this is kind of a silly hobby idea, but I think I can make this work. And I wanted to make it work so bad. And I would just stay up late learning about communication, learning about physical communication and how that's super important in conversations. So that was the first real tough time. And the next tough time is like after I started recruiting people. I had my first 5, 10, 15 guys. All of them weren't good. Very, very few were good. And 2 of the first 15 guys are still with me today, and they're actually executives in my company. But other than that, no one from that initial 15 is still in the company. And the reason is there's multiple reasons, but mainly at that time, I didn't realize that, this job is for certain people. It's my job to get them to the level to succeed at it. But even when you do that, there's people that are going to not give it their all, so they have an excuse why they failed. There's people that will never truly commit to something. And there's people that just don't have the confidence and conviction. No matter how much you teach them, the product's good. No matter how much you teach them, hey, you're smart, you're an intelligent person, you're good looking, like, people will love to listen to you and they'll trust you. They just don't believe in themselves enough. And that was a pain point for me, because I thought, like, is it me? Am I the reason they're not sticking around? Is this normal? Come to find out a few years later that yes, every time we recruit 50 people, 10 of them actually stick around and are good. 2 of them are studs, and the rest of them are just a waste of time, but you have to train them to give them that chance.
Awesome. So is that where you've moved into your purpose, kind of, or is it more escalating companies? Like, what's your purpose now? Like, what are you talk about purpose there? Like, where is that escalated to?
Yeah. So like my main life goal at this point, obviously it's probably going to change 15 times over in my life, but being in the industry I'm in and realizing the impact that, solar sales or home improvement sales or sales as a whole can make on someone, I want to teach people to see their full potential, to help them with the tools and, the training to reach their full potential and, continue to do better than they thought, their family thought, in any way possible. A lot of people come to me initially and they think, $60,000 a year is a lot of money. And it is, and that's great. And they think that's all they're worth because that's maybe what their parents made. That's maybe what, majority of the country makes. But working a sales job, you have the opportunity to choose what you make, if you will. Yeah. You have all the resources at your disposal. And if you're on the right comp plan, you should be able to work harder and make more money. And I think that's the true recipe for success. And that's my true purpose, is showing people what they're worth, helping them get there, and helping them obtain a better life and financial freedom and just freedom as a whole.
One of the questions in the previous thing there, we were talking about how you did a ton of research, stuff like that. During my time when you transitioned over to normal world working, stuff like that, and I was still playing hockey, you're sending me books, you're sending me stuff online, stuff like that. Do you feel like, we've talked in the past, neither of us are school guys. Neither of us were, okay, we're going to go to school, do like doctor stuff. And we've both kind of talked about this in the past, but do you feel like you've learned more from internal books, YouTube, learning all this stuff than you would have ever gotten in education? Or do you think that is similar to what you would have gotten, or a combination? Like where do you feel on the stance of not just sales or human communication, but like just in a broad spectrum of business?
Like success as a whole.
Yeah, exactly.
Education versus
just like life skills. Like even you're talking about going to you're going to Impact Church, that group of guys that you've learned so much from, like things like that, where even like Aaron Wagner and guys that you've talked to, we talk about this all the time. You're like, the amount of knowledge I've gotten from this guy. We had a meeting last night, and the amount of like input and knowledge that I got was within an hour was probably more than I've gotten all last year, which is crazy. It's the amount that you absorb like a sponge, talking to these influential people or reading these books, is insane. Like where did that start? Why did you get into that? Where was it? Where should you start if I didn't know anything about it, type thing?
Yeah. So I think, as a whole, on the topic of education versus experience, what's going to be best for someone to succeed if they're starting over, I think it depends on the person. I'll start off with that. But my experience is that the educational system is built for the majority of people to think a certain way, to act a certain way, and to do things a certain way. And, I spent 3 years in higher education. I intended on going to law school. And as I was going through my studies, I didn't feel challenged. I didn't feel fulfilled. And I felt like I was wasting a finite amount of my time there doing that. And then as I got into the business world and started being an entrepreneur and making friends that were entrepreneurs and doing way bigger things than I could even fathom, I realized and recognized that learning by osmosis is by far the best medium for me to learn. And what that means is, like our meeting last night, sitting at a table with someone that's actually done it, is doing it every day, and is successful at something, I'm going to learn 10 times more than if I were to sit in a classroom and have a lecture on the same topic. It's just, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's me personally, but I find that I am much more capable of taking in the information, retaining it, and carrying that on to me in my everyday life, to my company's trainings, whatever it might be, if it's from someone that's doing it and acting it. Yeah. And it could be just my mentality on trusting them and knowing that they're actually preaching, doing what they preach, versus, where professors and stuff aren't. So it's definitely dependent on the person. If you're going to go be a nurse, if you're going to go be a lawyer, if you're going to go be a doctor, I recommend school. But if you're not doing any of those things, especially in this day and age where you can make money doing almost anything from home, learning it yourself, buying a course and learning it that way from someone that's actually in the field, I think that's a better way to spend your money and spend your time.
Do you feel too, like I look at it now with you guys, like your top sales reps came to Arizona for a little bit, and first thing you guys did, sit 5 minutes in, was watching YouTube videos on guys door knocking. Like you're talking about books that you guys have read. Like you guys are always learning. Like anything that you've picked up throughout that time, like where it's the little things that you're learning from that, or are you getting broad spectrum from all these things still?
Yeah, no, I think it's a combination, but I think like little things and taking in information all the time is how you become successful. So in sales, my idea of what makes a salesperson extremely good is communication and rapport. And to have really good rapport and to be able to continue your communication up throughout a conversation with majority of people, what do you have to have? Do you know this answer?
You have to have common interests.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's exactly where I was going. So common interests. So when I'm watching a documentary, when I'm reading a book, and I take in more knowledge than most people that I know,
you know trivia, something about everything.
Something about everything.
And the watches, the cars, the golf clubs, literally, if you bring up a topic, it seems like you know something about it.
Right. And I read random stuff, like stuff that I'm not even interested in. I'll just read because I don't know about it. That's the way my mind works.
I didn't know you were in chess until a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And it seems like you're a master
in training. But that's exactly it. And that's how you become good at sales, is by taking in information more than anybody else. So when you meet that lady that, is talking about farming, you can talk about farming. When you meet that lady that you can talk about sports and athletics and health, you can talk about that. When you meet that aggressive homeowner that only wants to talk about guns and trucks, you can talk about that. When you meet the person that only wants to talk about therapy and psychology, you can talk about that. And that's truly the key in my eyes to what gets you to that next level of being a solar ninja, being a top salesman in your industry, in your company. If you can talk on a lot of topics enough to get by and to be truthful and articulate your thoughts and have an opinion on something, that's how you build rapport with the customer better than anything else.
Okay, how about this? 5 top subjects that you would say for any salesman, and then 5 top subjects that you like.
Okay. Well, I think they kind of go hand in hand, but top subjects for a salesman in home improvement. Yeah. I think you got to know your area really well. I think if you know your area really well and you're having a tough time, the doors are choppy that day, and the area, you can bring up restaurants in the area, things in the area. Hey, do you do this? Hey, I'm in the area for the next 2 months. I was wondering, if you ever go to the baseball games down there or whatever it might be. So know the area really well and learn what people in that area like. So because it differs per area. If you're in a heavily Republican area, you want to probably be aware of that. If you're in a heavily Democratic area, you want to be aware of that. And that kind of shifts my answer a little bit. But you got to know how to talk about cars, because you're going to have those aggressive homeowners. You got to know how to talk about soft stuff as well. I don't think I can necessarily name 5 things off the top of my head that I would say go and learn, because you'd be surprised what comes up. Random stuff comes up. Just start being more purposeful with your time. Don't scroll through TikTok looking at, prank fails and only things that interest you. Like that For You page is just narrowing your thoughts into what you already know and you're already interested in. Go on to Google and, look at some other stuff that, you maybe wouldn't look at before. Every time you go to Netflix, what do you pick? Stuff you're interested in. If you're an action gun guy, you're going to go to all the action gun guy movies. If you're, a girl that likes, reality TV and those girl type shows, you're going to go to Gossip Girl. You're going to go to Vanderpump Rules. And that tends to stunt your growth in terms of building rapport. So you got to be open to anything, read anything, take in some information. But my favorite topics to talk about would absolutely be cars, sports, guns, golf, which kind of would fall under sports. And then just,
I would say watches. That was one of my guesses.
Yeah. Watches, 100%. I can talk about watches all day long. It's a bad habit. Don't get into watches. It takes the life out of you. It's the only reason. Yeah, no.
Only reason you're still having to knock doors.
No. I wish.
So we were talking about school earlier. At first, I know why you got into school, stuff like that, and it was more family driven, I would say, than anything. How big of an impact has family built on you in your life? Have you had? I know you've had some ups and downs within your family, stuff like that. What are things that you'd say that have impacted you within your family that are good, positive, negative, anything along those lines? Just so viewers know.
Yeah. So I grew up with an amazing family, a very blessed family. Never had to worry about food or anything. I always had the best hockey. Always had the best hockey sticks. And then, when I was 13 years old, my dad died suddenly from a brain aneurysm, and he was my best friend. He was my mentor. He was everything to me, and he was a healthy guy. Like we ran a mountain in Arizona called Pinnacle Peak the weekend before, so it wasn't like he was, terminally ill or had something wrong. It was very sudden. He dropped me off at school, went on a business trip to Houston, and that was that. So that was extremely traumatic for me, and because of that, I think, it allowed me, or I should say, it forced me to mature at a much faster pace. my mom was still always there for me. I still never had to worry about, the comforts that life has to offer. My mom always took care of that. I never had to worry about paying for hockey or anything like that. But she was definitely, heartbroken for a number of years, and still to this day. So it definitely caused me to have a little bit of a different mentality on life, and maybe just become more mature. I moved away young at a young age for hockey. That also attributes to me maturing fast. But, all in all, my mom supported me as well, all the way up until I started my business, and even during my business, she was always there to...
Even now still.
Every single day.
Conversations, yeah.
She's positive with me. She criticizes me and keeps me on my toes, make sure that what I'm doing is right. So she's definitely a rock star, and she picked up a lot of slack when that happened, and I feel for her too, because that was very difficult. But that's something that I don't talk about a lot, because it's a tough thing to talk about. But if me sharing that does one thing for anybody out there that's gone through that, because it's way more common than a lot of people think, then the whole purpose of the content creation that I'm doing and me getting my story out there was a win to me. Because if something bad happens to your life, and to me, that was probably the worst thing that could have happened, it doesn't mean you need to go down the drain. It doesn't mean you need to give up on yourself. It doesn't mean you need to get into drugs. It doesn't mean you need to go, to become a big partier or, have bad habits. You can totally take that anger, that pain, and that hurt, and divert it into healthy things. And for me, that was hockey for a number of years, and now it's business.
That was the time when I basically met you, and basically you transitioned into... You almost had three families growing up. You had your family, obviously. You had us, and then you had your billet family once you moved up to juniors. And we're definitely family at this point. We've gone through some stuff, and I would have loved to have met Danny. That would have been crazy. But the transition from having different perspectives of parents in a way. I've had it too with junior hockey, moving into a different billet house. My billets, Dave and Darlene, I would consider parents. Yeah. Michelle, when I was in Edmonton, they're literally parents in that side of things. Did that play a big part on what you did as a person too? Seeing what those new families were doing, the way they lived. You have a different perspective in a way. I saw it, at least with junior hockey. I was like, man, maybe I want to be a firefighter. This is cool type thing. His lifestyle. And then I'm looking at Michelle, same amazing lady, super nice family, stuff like that. Her husband passed away 3 years before I moved in there. Same sort of situation. Her daughter was 14 at the time, and I kind of saw that living in that sort of dynamic in a way too. Living in different dynamics gives you such a different point of view. Do you feel like that has helped you just in general life, seeing different people's perspectives or anything along those lines?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I learned so much from my dad. I learned so much from my mom. And then I started to learn different stuff from your dad, from your mom. And then I learned different stuff. Oliver. Yeah, Grandpa Oliver. I just learned different stuff from everybody. And that probably has created me to be such a diverse individual in terms of what I'm interested in and what I know to talk about. Because I've always been a sponge. I've always been, a talker. I'm a sales guy. I talk a lot. And I always ask just questions. I'd ask questions about cranes, or ask questions about farming, or ask questions about, whatever. And I think, the people around me have been extremely beneficial to me by just, not treating me like a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid. They would actually take the time and respect my questions and answer them, even if they were silly. And that went a long way for me. It felt good and allowed me to become a lot more intelligent than I might have been if I was just in a shell, not talking, not learning through osmosis from all the people around me.
I think the other thing, though, is you asked questions. You weren't scared to ask anybody questions, which I was a little bit different. I'd be like, Brock, we don't need to ask that question today, bro. But it would be you had no problem asking those questions for younger people out there. Even if you're in your 20s, I'm still working on it, just being okay with asking questions. I've learned that more from you than anybody else probably. Even in juniors, I was asking questions. I'd be shut up, that's fine type thing.
It's rare for a 16-year-old to go up to a very successful business owner and be like, what is your cost of acquiring a customer?
Yeah, exactly.
And they would take the time and respond to it. I'm sure some of them didn't even know. Now that I know that it's so rare in the business world for people to actually track those quantifiable statistics. But absolutely, you got to ask the questions to learn something. You're never really going to get a bad result. And if you do, oh well, move on. It's the same goes for door knocking. Like, ask questions, learn, and that's probably why I transitioned so well. So that's an excellent point. And then for you, like, what have you seen the most happen to me over the past, let's call it like 3 years? You've been playing professional hockey still, which is amazing, by the way. And I think everybody that ever played with you knew that you were going to achieve that. And in that time, we haven't spent as much time together because you're obviously in small, wonderful towns across the United States. And then you'd come back and you'd see maybe Brock 2.0 and Brock 3.0 and just maturing.
It would be a different person every time I came back in a way, but we would still talk. Yeah, you obviously last year I was going to step into working with you in some capacity, and you're like, dude, just go back and give it another kick at the can to see what's going on. And it was a great year and great opportunity and stuff. Didn't work out the way I wanted it to, obviously, but throughout the last since this has happened since I was COVID, basically. 18 was when you started. 2019 probably was when you started transitioning heavily into entrepreneurial side. Obviously, you're doing the solar stuff before that, but really into the business owner side of things.
Absolutely.
And the amount of maturity and stuff like that has changed dramatically for sure. At the same time, the amount of childness has come out too, in a way. Like the toys have been getting a little bit bigger, stuff like that. But at the same time, you work hard, you play hard on that side of things. But I think that for sure, it's been a more direct type personality that you've built in. Before it was very drawn out, where I am at the point right now where it's drawn out, very like, I don't care about my time necessarily as much, where I'm not doing as much during the day, but you're very particular about what conversations you're getting into, where your time and focus is at nowadays, and you're very direct with it. You're not gonna fluff around the situation, and it might come off to some people in your company in a more harsh way, but it's more direct. And I think it's actually, you see more CEOs and stuff moving into that direction because you're creating better response time, better responses,
more accountability.
Yeah, exactly. Like I never saw you before where you didn't want to fire anybody. It was like, I would be like, dude, fire the guy. I grew up around my dad owning a business where he would fire all these people all the time, and I would be like, fire him. And you'd be like, no, like, can you come with me to fire this guy? And I would be like, just, you got to do it. Like, I can come with you, but you got to do it. And at a certain point now you're like, you're on the phone, fire that guy. He's fired. Like, just like, it's changed that transition to the confidence and just being able to go, no, I'm being direct. You messed up. This isn't right. And the morals of it though haven't changed along that path, which I really respect. Like, I would like you to kind of talk about your morals within the space. Like, you don't work with people. I've seen you turn down deals that would have made you money that it just wasn't good for the homeowner, or situations along those lines where your morals have never changed on that side of things, but the way that you're getting across those points have transitioned to more of a CEO type vibe, a business owner type transition.
There's more experience. I think, for me,
you're not worried about pissing someone off because there's a lot of fish in the sea on that side of things.
And going back to like my moral values, I mean, I'm very selective of who's going to work in my organizations. And that goes for the software company, that goes for the solar company, that goes for anything that I do. I'm very selective about who I spend time with, just as friends. And you've seen this a lot. Like how many people
push you to get people that I hang out with to hang out with you, and then you're like, man, that guy's really cool. I'm like, I've been telling you to hang out with him for months, man.
And there's people that we grew up with that I don't even associate myself with because I consider them boat anchors. aren't. And then there's people who grew up with that are excellent people. So I've just learned to be more selective with that. And when it comes to like businesses and, partnerships, there's been a lot of partnerships that would have been quite lucrative for me. But it wasn't the right deal. It wasn't a win-win. And they had different ideas about what's right for the business and what's right for the customer. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like for every business owner, reputation is all you have and extremely important. But it's even more important when you're a young entrepreneur that you keep your reputation intact. And I always want to make sure that I have, at least the awareness to know that, yes, stuff happens. Install companies mess up. We mess up. It's construction. Something's going to happen. But you have to be able to help the customer out and be there for them, hear them. And if companies don't align with that, like if they're just like, whatever, no worries, the customer will figure it out on their own. I tend to drop those people from our partner network very, very fast. Yes. It just gives the wrong idea to everyone involved. And it's like, we don't care. How much confidence is that going to be on one of my sales guys that, this operations person doesn't care that this customer's upset. Yeah. But the sales guy was there with his neck out in the home, convincing this person to trust them and work with them. It's very, very bad for the business, very bad for your salespeople, and very bad for you, because the more negativity that you get, you're already facing a lot from your inner circles. Being an entrepreneur, it's just going to slowly degrade at you. So you got to make sure that you work with the right people and increase positivity around you, support around you, and push yourself to get to that next level.
For sure. And the other transition I would say too that I've seen is on that side of things is you went from, if someone crossed you or not crossed you necessarily, but upset you.
Maybe in hockey, cross-check.
Yeah, exactly. But upset you in a way that you're like, this guy's, in your words, a bozo or something like that, right? Where you would be like, I'm not going to associate with that person ever again type thing, where I would be like, hey, let's go golfing with this guy or hang out, and be like, no, I'm not dealing with that person. Yeah. Now you've transitioned to where I'll be around them, but you're still...
They're not going to get any of the golden eggs.
No, but like, you know what I mean? Like you've transitioned to being...
cordial. I'm cordial with people.
The cordial side of it, where you're playing the game on that side more, where it was very black and white for a long stretch. But those would be the big things that I've seen transition wise.
They still know that I'm not a fan of them. But they
they don't deserve to be a fan in any stretch. But at the same time, that transition to being okay with a conversation or a situation with anybody now seems very a big transition.
Yeah, it's progressive.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to stay true to your moral values, and when it's time to cut someone out of your life or move on, you got to just do it. You got to rip the Band-Aid off, because a lot of times, like if you're out there and you're listening to this, you're going to have friends that go down a different path than you want for your life. And it's a very, very important decision that you either stick with them and go down that path. You try to stop them from going down that negative path, and that's what a good friend would do. And if they don't listen at the end, I mean, you got to part ways, because they're going to bring you down with them. And I've talked about this in the last podcast, and I'll probably talk about it in every podcast, because I think it's something that people...
Well, it's our age
need to know.
Yeah.
Like our demographic is...
You have so many different ways, guys, that people are pulling you. Yeah. It's crazy.
And our demographic is like... It is the easiest time to succeed, no matter what the economy is doing, what business you're in. It is the easiest time to succeed, in my eyes, in history. And the reason is because this generation has access to learning things in the same day. I can go and create a community online, in 20 minutes that people can access my content. I can create thousands and thousands and thousands of duplications of myself on the internet, through reels, through clips, that all will use AI eventually to pull from, to make me even more of an influencer on people as technology progresses. And also, the last thing why it's so easy to succeed is because the baby boomer generation is starting to retire, and our generation, the 40 and younger generation, we are way lazier as a whole than our parents' generation was. And I would say, and like if you were to go and look back at like our dads when they were, you know, in high school, I would say, you know, and this is just because we're comparing the dads, but like out of 30 men, 25 of them were hard workers. Now you come to our generation, and out of 30 of them, I would say 10, 11 are hard workers, and 2 of them can.
You're also in a pretty hard industry with door knocking. Just saying, like it's not for the faint of heart for sure.
No.
Like I'm not a big fan of it in general, but I'm trying to get better at it. But it's still it's a hard.
It is, and I'm saying as a whole, like not just door knocking. I just think that like there's so many people out there that can't focus on themselves or bettering themselves because they're too busy, you know, wasting their time on TikTok or something. You have to be conscientious of what you're spending your time on. There's too much content out there right now that it's hard to decipher what's good content to consume and what's bad content to consume. So make sure you're aware always of what content you're consuming, because that's going to be a projection of where you're going to be.
Well, you also look at TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. They're not making money if you're not looking at it. Mm-hmm. So the more you look at it, the more money they're making. What's value are you getting out of it really? You like that's like
right.
They're taking all the value out of it on that side of things. It's a free platform for a reason because they need your eyes on it.
Yeah, they need to know what you like, and exactly. If you're giving them the wrong idea of what you like, you'll see the stuff that's negative, the stuff that's bad, the stuff that's sacrilegious start popping up on your channel, on your For You page, and you got to recognize that, like, oh, what have I done on this app? What have I been liking? What have I been spending time on to make these things come up? I want my For You page to be like engineering stuff, business stuff, science stuff, and cars.
You can use it to an advantage for sure.
You can, 100%.
At the same time, if you're having issues with it, I would say delete it for a week. See what happens.
Yeah.
Delete it for a week and just go figure something out. Yeah. Or even you listen to. We've had a conversation with a guy that owns a big solar company, and they're talking about their first install, watching YouTube videos on how to do it.
Yeah. And they became one of the largest, and who knows what they're doing now, but they became one of the largest in a matter of 8 years.
And that's one of the things where I look at technology nowadays. You can learn anything. Yeah. Like you look up literally anything. It's on there.
Take advantage of it. Yeah. Anything else that you think would be beneficial for the viewers to know before we wrap it up?
Any expansion plans, really? Like you're stepping into Horizon Home Solutions here. Yeah. Where's the vertical integration coming in? Why are you moving into that? What are you thinking on that side of things? Why?
So
you're doing so well with solar.
Yeah, and everyone says this, like stay in your lane.
Exactly.
Focus on one thing and be great at it.
But people you talk to, even last night, why are you in so many different things?
Yeah, no, and I think it's true, right? Because, I have a software company with my brother, Pricer, and that takes a good amount of time. And then I have my personal Horizon Energy Consultants business. And then, do real estate investments, other stuff here and there, and some consulting. So my schedule is full. So people think it's silly for me to take on more, but, I think we could have a whole podcast on it. But all in all, Horizon Energy Consultants will be Horizon Home Solutions in the coming months. We're going to start in small markets, expanding our product lineup, but we're going to have a number of exciting ones that I don't really want to release right now. Yeah. But we'll just leave it at a complete home solutions provider and acquiring other businesses.
We can start talking about it in the next podcast too.
We can talk about it in the next podcast, and also for the Discord link is going to be on my Linktree in my Instagram bio and on my other platforms bios. Go there, sign up for the Discord, and then you can be a part of the community. And the community is going to be really cool. It's going to be not professionally set up content. It's going to be content of me in business meetings with my executives in each company I do, with my investment partners. And it's just going to be natural stuff that you can look and have an inside natural look that's not set up, that's not scripted, of what goes on in my life running businesses. And you can learn from it, you can criticize it, but all in all, I just want it to be natural and honest out there, that this is what your life is like if you want to be an entrepreneur like I am. So the vertical integration is exciting. It's coming. If you want more information on that, I'm sure we'll have a podcast about it once we launch that. But join the Discord. Cade, dude, great questions. I think you totally gave the viewer and everyone watching this a little bit more of you know, what Brock's life entails, where I've come from. And you know, thanks for being a brother all this time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for hopping on the podcast.
We'll have to do a couple more.
We'll have to do a couple more. And, you know, every week we're dropping a podcast. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you like this, share it with your friends, and join the community. If you're a sales guy and you want to improve, send me a DM. Let's do a call. Let's see what you got, and we can review your pitches for you on the Discord. It'll be pretty fun. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a wonderful day.
See you guys.
See ya.